أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Before I start, I want to make a special request to people to say prayers for our sister Samina Malik, who's been taken seriously ill in the United States. That Allah may watch over her. Until we have news from her family, please continue to pray for her. I want to start by reciting chapter 4, verse 89. وَدُّوا لَوْ تَكْفُرُونَ كَمَا كَفَرُوا فَتَكُونُونَ سَوَاءً فَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا مِنْهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءَ حَتَّى يُهَاجِرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَخُذُوهُمْ واقتلوهم حيث وجدتموهم ولا تتخذوا منهم وليا ولا نصيرا. They long that you should disbelieve as they have disbelieved, so that you might be on the same level. So take not from among them friends until they flee their homes in Allah's way. Then if they turn back to hostility, seize them and kill them wherever you find them, and take no friends nor helpers from among them. Next verse I want to recite is chapter 47, verse 4. فَإِذَا لَقِيتُمُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَضَرْبَ الرِّقَابِ حَتَّى إِذَا أَثْخَنْتُمُوهُمْ فَشُدُّوا الْوَثَاقَ فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً حَتَّى تَضَعَ الْحَرْبُ أَوْزَارَهَا ذَلِكَ وَلَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ لَانتَصَرَ مِنْهُمْ وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَ بَعْضَكُمْ بِبَعْضٍ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَلَنْ يُضِلَّ أَعْمَالَهُمْ. So when you meet in battle, those who disbelieve, smite the necks. Then when you have overcome them, make them prisoners, and afterwards set them free. Set them free as a favor or for a ransom till the war lays down its burden. That shall be so. And if Allah please, He would certainly exact retribution from them, but that He may try some of you by means of others. And those who are slain in the way of Allah, He will never allow their deeds to perish. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. These verses of the Holy Quran are often quoted. Chapter 4, verse 89, and chapter 47, verse 4. These are quoted by Western media to show that Islam is a violent religion and it promotes killing of human beings who disagree with Muslims. But no one mentions the following verses from the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 7, verses 1 and 2. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess, and drives out before you many nations, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, 7 nations larger and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you, and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. Compare this with the Holy Quran, which says, when you meet them in battle, but when you have overcome them, make them prisoners. Set them free as a favor or for ransom. What does the Bible say, the Old Testament say? When you have defeated them, you must destroy them totally. Have you ever seen this mentioned on BBC or ITV or CNN? No. Christianity is a religion of peace. Make no treaty with them and show them no mercy. What the Holy Quran says? And set them free as a favor. What does the Old Testament say? Show them no mercy. And then we go on to the same chapter, verses 16 and 7, verses 16 to 18. However, in the cities of the nations, the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, do not leave anything that breathes. Can you see what's happening in Gaza? Can you see what's happening in southern Lebanon and the West Bank? However, in the cities of the nations, the Lord your God is giving you as inheritance. Do not leave alive anything that breathes. Completely destroy them. Then it mentions the 7 nations as I did before, as the Lord your God has commanded. So we are told the Bible is the book of peace. This is what the Bible is telling its followers to do. Completely destroy them as the Lord your God has commanded you. Otherwise, they will teach you to follow all the detestable things they do in worshipping their gods, and you will sin against the Lord your God. And then Joshua, verse 6:21. This is a commentary on the verse, on verse 6:21, Joshua in the Old Testament. They killed everyone, men and women, young and old. This is when the Jews took over any town. They're simply following the Old Testament in Gaza. Can you see that? They killed everyone, men and women, young and old, except Rahab and the others in her house. They even killed, listen to this, they even killed every single cow, every single sheep, and every single donkey. Joshua said to the 2 men who had been spies, Rahab kept you safe when I sent you to become their friends and the saviors of the Jews, and have become victims of the Jews. There are many examples of this duplicity by the West. You see, they quote this verse, 489. How unreasonable, they say. They long that you should disbelieve as they have disbelieved, so that you might be on the same level. And they say, this is so bad. The Holy Quran is telling us not to make friends with Christians and Jews and so on. Well, have you forgotten Senator McCarthy? Have you forgotten the McCarthy era? When, while preaching freedom of expression, freedom of belief, Senator McCarthy relentlessly persecuted those who were called commie sympathizers, friends of the communists. So when you do it, it's fine. But when the Quran says something that you adopt, then it's bad. Even the father of the American atom bomb, he was Oppenheimer. He was hounded out of his job. And he and his family starved. He could not get another job. Not even as a school teacher, because he was regarded as a commie sympathizer. His friends were forced into testifying against him. They saw what was happening, and they were told if they didn't testify against Oppenheimer, then they will be persecuted in the same way as commie sympathizers. Is this me saying that? You say, oh yeah, Shahid Aziz is making all this up. How about the American president? I think it was Lyndon Johnson who held a press conference at White House and related all of this and asked Oppenheimer to forgive the American government for persecuting him and his family and starving You believe him, won't you? Don't believe Shahid Aziz. Yes, these people and their families were not executed. But if you're executed, the whole thing comes to an end quickly. These were tortured and starved over a long period of time, many starving to death. Charlie Chaplin was hounded as a commie sympathizer simply because he said the poor have a right to food. The poor have a right to medicine. And he had to escape United States. And he was afraid to come to England because he thought the British government, being lackeys and lapdogs of the American state, might hand him back to the Americans. So he went to Switzerland and he spent the rest of his days there. And the situation wasn't that different for Muslims after 9/11. It was McCarthyism with a different mask. They were hounded. They were thrown out of their jobs and starved and so on. And yet, Muslims are told that we are the ones who torture and kill those who disagree with us. What was that evil person, Senator McCarthy, doing? Was he a Muslim? No, he wasn't. He was a Christian, as far as I know. How about the killing of 1 million Iraqis on a lie? Bush and Blair told a blatant lie to the world. But of course, it's the Muslims who go around committing genocide and killing innocent women and children. The First World War, the Second World War, the war in Korea, the war in Vietnam, attacks on Egypt, murder of countless innocent African men, women, and children, invention of the atom bomb, use of the atom bomb, invention and use of chemical weapons. Who did all that? The list goes on. Who did all that? Muslims, followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or Christians and Jews? Which of these things that I've listed were Muslims responsible for? Chemical warfare in Vietnam, dropping chemical agents on Vietnamese jungles and in the jungles in their neighboring countries. Even now, people are dying of cancer because of the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But you are the peace-loving people, aren't you? You love to bomb other countries into peace and submission. You did that in Afghanistan, and you did that in Iraq, and now you're trying to do that in Syria. Well, you didn't do it yourself, but you're giving weapons and money to Israel to do that in Gaza and southern Lebanon. But with regret, I have to say that we Muslims are responsible for what is happening to us. Why doesn't any Muslim embassy or High Commission in London write to the newspapers and say, no, this is not Islam, this is not us, it's you. You are the killers, you are the perpetrators. Why doesn't any Muslim embassy in Washington, D.C. does that? Because they're all scared. When they retire, they want to get themselves and their wives and their children and so on settled in these countries and get nationalities and indefinite leave to remain, etc. We are the ones who fail to establish ourselves as honorable people. And that is the problem. That whenever anything happens, we just moan and then forget about it. Do you think murder of over 50 Shias in Pakistan put Islam in Pakistan into a good light? Do people really think that honorable people open fire on a bus full of women and children and mow down 55 of them with machine guns? We fight amongst ourselves. And to curry favor with these people, we enter into alliances with them, which we think are benefiting us personally or our family. But as nations, it's the nations of the West that benefit from these things. Why don't we point out that there's a historical trend which can be traced back? It was the German Christians who committed genocide against the Jews, sent them to concentration camps and gassed them. Muslims tried to and saved large numbers of Jews at a risk to their own lives. You don't believe me? Go and look at the list. The Jews have a list of honorable amongst nations, and see how many people, how many Muslims there are on that list who put their own lives at risk to save Jews. And this is the thanks they're getting these days. We have a Schindler's List of a Christian saving Jews, but is there a Schindler's List of the Muslims who saved Jews? If Hollywood doesn't make such a movie, what is wrong with you? Why don't you make such a movie and spread it all over the West? You see, this is what we did. And we were doing this. The British government, Mr. Winston Churchill, was denying Jews entry into the United Kingdom. The British government, supported by British people, were refusing to grant Jews asylum as they escaped the Christian Hitler's shackles. Why don't you point this out to them? Why don't you just sit there and take it all and murmur apologetically? You have an honorable history. But the world will only know about it if you tell them. You tell them about the British refusing to give asylum to the Jews who were escaping Hitler's genocide. No one mentions that in history books. Kids these days do history at school. Let a single kid from the whole of Britain email me and tell me which syllabus includes persecution of Jews by the British in their syllabus. Isn't it ironic that the murderers of the Jews have suddenly become their friends, and the saviors of the Jews have become victims of the Jews? But you mustn't blame other nations and other people as you always do. Blame yourselves. Blame yourselves. Why does the world hold you in such low esteem? Think on that rather than just moaning and groaning and whispering in each other's ears, or going to the other extreme and blowing up buses and underground trains and so on. Why don't you have an intellectual, scholarly, knowledge-based debate to show the world the truth? Everyone is going to use propaganda and modern media for their own benefit to further their own ends. Why should we complain that the media controlled by the Zionists is promoting Zionist objectives? This is what they would do. Why don't you set up your own media? Muslim countries have enough money. Why don't they? Just think on that. Stop blaming others and take responsibility for your own actions. I've just taken 2 verses of the Holy Quran and compared them with 4 or 5 verses of the Old Testament and a little bit of history. Why can't every one of us do that? Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun. Alhamdulillah wa nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عباد الله رحمكم الله. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعله كعصف مأكول. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
ربنا.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أستغفر الله. بارك الله. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. I hope you will think of the things I mentioned, and perhaps give you a comment. Until we meet again next Friday, with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, I take my leave of you. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.